I understand the can of worms that nobody wants to touch, but I don't know, what do you think the best situation? I mean, we've got organizations that have been, pretty unchristian to Walt. We've got people that have apparently plagiarized things, or someone who's done that. How can this situation be remedied, do you think?
Well, I think again we go to scripture to find our model, and they're really, the model is repentance and forgiveness. But repentance requires, that you admit wrongdoing, and that's what
Right.
nobody wants to do.
Right, right. And I remember with or Bob Enyart, he's whatever, we're working on this project or whatever, and we put up this page, rsr.org HPT, or he did. It's got everything you need on hydroplate. And then he asked, should we put in this controversy? And we did, and I said, no, let's have people focus on the HPT. Let's not distract them with the controversy. And then a year or two went by, and I thought, you know what? We need to put the controversy in there so he has a chance to defend himself. Because if we wait until he dies to expose it, it's like, well, why did you wait until he died? So this is there for people to look at. And if you want to find out the more of the details, you did a really good interview with Bob Enyart. That's if you just go into rsr.org and search Albright, or, Albright, there's 3 of them. One's on the canopy, one's on the catastrophic plate tectonics, and then there's one on the hydroplate, where you go through and you name names, who said what and what did they do. And if people want to get those details, otherwise, Walt Brown talked about it on page 246 of his 9th edition. That's the one that you can get online. You go into rsr.org/HPT and click on the 9th edition button. You go down to page 246 and you find out about that. And so those are 2 places where you can learn about it. And he also, in there, he talks about bringing, there's somebody who criticized his Grand Canyon theory. And so they lined up some geologists to go to the Grand Canyon, and Walt would have 3 days to show him his evidence. And then the other guy would have 3 days to show their evidence. And after Walt's 3 days, the guy said, I got to go. He wouldn't do it. He didn't have it. And then apparently he went on and criticized the theory anyway. So that's the game that's being played. We're trying to straighten up the rules a little bit, get a little more cleaned up. And I think light is the best disinfectant. Let's not cover things up in the past. Let's just call balls, balls, and strikes, strikes. And if there's some things that need to be dealt with, they should be dealt with. And so I encourage people to, there's organizations that have been, non-Christian. There's someone, just kind of think about in your mind, what should those organizations and what should that person do to make things straight? You have that in your mind first before you go and find out who it is. And I do see a change. I do see that major organization. They've actually, they've apologized from what I understand, and they've even thanked Walt's organization. And I really enjoy his letter when the president, when he took over, he said, I've been encouraged to promote our brand. He says, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to promote creation. And then he went on and he thanked so many other creation organizations, including Walt's. And so there's the tide is changing, and there's a saying, sometimes, science advances one funeral at a time. And hopefully it doesn't get to that point, but hopefully we can get rectified and get all on the same team. But I do want to thank you so much for the research you did here, Jane. Are there any closing thoughts that you have, or anything you want to add to this interview before you shut her down?
Just one other thing, you mentioned the link on the RSR page for the interviews with Bob. That page also includes links to my 4-part written articles. So
That's
some people,
right.
Yeah. So
That's
some people,
right.
I'm more of a reader than a listener, so they can find, details there.
That's right. That's right. You go into rsr.org/HPT and you scroll way down to the bottom, or you can just search controversy, and you're going to see, it'll link you to the interviews, it'll link you to the documents, and then you can have all the information and make informed decisions, because unfortunately that's not happening in our in our public schools and even in our creation museums. I think people should have multiple theories so they can think critically. And they should put the hydroplate right up there next to the catastrophic plate tectonics. And it'll be interesting to see which creation organization will do it first. So thank you so much, Jane. Is there anything else you want to add before we go?
We need to pray that the 9th edition will get finalized and published, and pray that God will change the hearts of these people that have been spreading these untruths.
Well, again, thanks again, Jane, for sharing such valuable information. And there was some website where there was a retraction page, is that right? Where people could retract what they had said?
Right. I mentioned that during my interviews, 2 of the people that I talked to very high up repeated the slander and the lies that Walt had threatened to sue this other organization. When Bob Enyart investigated that subsequent to my interviews with him, he set up a page. It's rsr.org/retractions, and specifically invited those 2 individuals to come to that website and say, hey, we said this, we were wrong, or I was mistaken, and this didn't happen. And there, to my knowledge, there's been no response on that either. But that's just another thing that could be done to help heal the breach.
So again, if people want to find out more of the details, it's rsr.org/HPT. Way down at the bottom, there's the hydroplate controversy, or the Walt Brown controversy. And then also there's, if you're on that website, you can go into the 9th edition and you click it. If you see the book, click the 9th edition. You can download that version of the 9th edition, and then go to page 246, and you'll hear where Walt Brown discusses it. And then also go into rsr.org/retractions and see if anybody has taken back what they've said.
I just thought about one more resource too, and not to overwhelm people, but hydroplate.org, there's a brief summary that I wrote up about 3 years ago of this whole thing, and with a chronology of events. And if you look on there, I think it's under blog posts or whatever, it's pretty obvious. So that's kind of
Hydroplate. I forgot about that. Yeah, hydroplate.org. And while you're there, you can see all the speakers, all the people that spoke at the 2023 Hydroplate Conference. And we had 3 PhDs, including one from the U.S. Air Force Academy. So there's some very well-educated people who think this is a topic that's worth discussing. And I gave a talk at the college, and it was on YouTube, and somebody commented under, basically it said, there's few things in life that excite me more than the hydroplate theory. And I agree, because it's like having the answers to an exam. Whenever they discover something new in science, it's like, well, yeah, that validates the hydroplate. And it's that saying, all scientists work for Walt Brown. Well, thank you so much for your efforts here, Jane. You've done a tremendous job, tremendous research, and may God bless your efforts.
You as well.
All right. Well, there we go. A lot of information there. And yeah, the links to those documents will be in this video. The video will be released tonight. And like Pastor Lee's talk on Tuesday, that's got the links to if you want to check out the documents yourself. Quick promo for what's coming tomorrow night.
I'm very big on data sets and paradigms, and it was a comprehensive paradigm. I'd never encountered anything like that, because I had no idea how to. So I was trained, evolution, old Earth, and then all of a sudden I'm noticing things that are pointing against that, but I had no comprehensive paradigm to explain the Great Flood or anything. And then when I stumbled on his book, it's like, oh my goodness, this makes sense. The Catholic scholarship has been infected with the heresy of modernism. I would say two big problems that all of us have to deal with here. One is temporal snobbery. We think that these people in the past were primitive, therefore God had to come up with a myth for them, which is nonsense. The other one is credentialism. Just because somebody is a priest, bishop, has a doctorate, or is a scientist, that means nothing unless you have a data set to back up your claim. All these others that claim that the earth is old, they have no data really to bolster that. The majority view is old Earth, because that's
Yeah.
because our theologians have hijacked, and the intellectuals hijacked the narrative. You have seminarians trained in that nonsense, and then
Yeah.
they become clergy, bishops, and onward. And we're basically fighting to get it back to the truth.
All right, so you're going to see that tomorrow night, and we have a guest here. We have a guest, and I'm so blessed to have Jane Albright here. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. What a blessing that is.
You're doing this has been so great. Doing such a good job. It's been so, a lot of these people I've heard their names, but didn't have the whole picture on their backgrounds. It's been so fascinating to just see.
Oh man, I've been like a kid in a candy store. I just love finding out more and more about Walt and more about the hydroplate theory. What a blessing that is, and all that work that you did. Thank you. We really do thank you for the creation movement.
It's hard to believe that it's been like 10 years already. First of all, I need to apologize that I don't have my merch on. I ordered a t-shirt. It didn't get here in time. So I hate to say I was coveting, but I was kind of a little jealous of Ellen yesterday with her.
So they didn't cancel your order because of licensing at all? No.
Whatever.
It went through. Good.
Not yet.
Okay.
But I have 2 mugs on the way. But I had already a mug, which I think this is the one that's still available on the site, which I love.
Oh, good.
But this is my favorite one, and I don't think it's available anymore. It's kind of a collector's edition. Pluto, never forget. Pluto, never forget. So the backstory there, but
oh my, yeah.
It broke Walt's heart.
Uh-oh.
Not a planet. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That must have been quite the ordeal, talking to all those people and getting all the facts. Did any of them, seem any like they wanted to fix the situation all, or they just wanted to keep it silenced?
Well, first of all, I would say that all of my conversations were very cordial, and I just basically asked 3 questions. I was just kind of trying to what flood model do you hold to, and what's your position on HPT, and of course I think all of them were opposed to it. So, and then why, and then have you actually read it? And as I stated in the interview, no one I talked to had actually read it. Just reviewing all this, I'm just struck, honestly, by how much what has been going on with basically shutting down and effectively censoring, getting the word about the hydroplate theory out, just even to the Christian community, much less the world, is so similar to what goes on in terms of what the world does to censor and to shut down creation and just promote evolution, and all the other things, all the other lies that have been uncovered. We've seen, especially in the last 2 years, around COVID and all sorts of other things. The name calling, the ad hominem attacks, the slander, the appeal to authority. Well, because and I even wondered that when I first started this. I thought, well, it seems like if this is such a great thing, why would our creationist geologists be so opposed to this? It really perplexed me. But again, as I dug into it more and learned and reviewed the history of science and just saw how things progress and don't progress and always have, it's no different. And that's really disillusioning for me, because you want to think that as believers, we hold to a higher standard and that we're seeking truth over our own vested interests and so forth. And so I kind of had to process and grieve that whole thing. And now almost nothing surprises me. In fact, I kind of think the more opposition there is, the more indication it is you're on to something here. Really.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was quite an experience. It was quite an experience. I want just one other thing along that line. I was trained as an engineer, and I don't think I ever took a geology class, and so I really didn't know what the field entailed. But it just really, again, it seemed like all these people with advanced degrees in geology, right? But as I talked to them, I really had a hard time getting to discuss to even some of the more basic technical issues, like why subduction can't happen.
Right.
Because of the strength of granite and what happens under pressures, and how it really, you can't slide granite. You can't, a simple force diagram shows that doesn't happen. And people that I talked to, just their eyes would just glaze over. So maybe I shouldn't even talk about this, but I did my own little deep dive, and I started digging into, well, what do geology schools actually teach? So I started pulling up top geology schools, and I looked at the coursework. What do you have to study to take? And I was shocked at how little real hard science there is in those curriculum.
Really?
A lot of observational stuff, a lot of stuff around minerals and dirt and stuff like that. Not a lot of physics, chemistry, strength of materials, energy, fluid flow, things that you kind of need to know about if you're going to study something so dynamic and catastrophic as a global flood. They don't study those things.
Yeah, and I think that's why Walt had the advantage. He understood energy and mechanisms and forces, and he looked at it up from an engineer, and he could put it together. And it's with his accurate predictions and his NASA discoveries.
So I just throw that out because if people shouldn't be intimidated because geologists don't believe in it or whatever, because they may not be really equipped to understand the technical aspects of that. Yeah. And like you keep talking about predictions, that's one of the most powerful validators of a theory.
Yeah. And they get ignored like crazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And they have no alternative explanation.
No.
But so the explanatory power, the CPT does not explain where did the water come from, where did it go, how did we end up with a mile thick, almost uniform layer of sediments all over the earth. You don't get that with tsunami waves.
No.
And so on and so forth. It doesn't explain any of that.
No.
Sorry, I get a little passionate.
Well, that's good. That's good. Passionate people do something, and we need people to do something. And so we're shining the light on it, and hopefully these videos get shared. And, I was very, very thankful for Pastor Lee's account of what happened to Walt, as he's recollecting that and how it really struck him, just how horribly he was treated, and how, Walt, he that to me is the most amazing thing. Walt's brilliant, and he's put together all this stuff. He's like today's Isaac Newton of the day. But what amazes me is how much poise he had under fire when his character is being attacked and his theories being mocked, and he just had grace under all of that. And it's been boggles my mind. And did you have?
It boggles mine too, and I can't believe he wasn't hurt, and I know Peggy must have been agonized, but that's where this incredible ability he was just on a mission, and he was driven by his scientific curiosity to understand, and sometimes people would get frustrated that he wouldn't spend more time trying to defend himself from all of these slings and arrows that would come in from all over. But if he'd done that, he wouldn't have gotten the work done that he got done. And so he just kept working, and I think time will validate.
Yeah, he had his priorities, and he was going to do it. And it's kind of like Nehemiah, I've got a job to do here, don't distract me, and even though they're attacking his character, it's like he just kept plugging along. And what an example for us, you know, let's do what needs to be done, and not don't fall into the trap of wasting time. But wow,
And I know, Kevin explained, he was just, he was just, why is everybody against this? And it was really like pulling teeth to get Walt to really, not that he was trying to hide it, but Kevin needs to know the details. He talked about somebody that's passionate for truth. Well, then Kevin was starting to hear, and people in our church were being told things about Walt that didn't make sense. So Kevin just said, send me all the documents. Just send me all the information. Yeah. And Walt did that. He sent him all the emails, all the letters. He keeps everything.
Yeah.
And this was like 20 years ago. And I helped him just, okay, let's put all this stuff together chronologically. And boy, was it subtle, the way they did things to undermine and to try to hide what they were doing. But once you spent the time looking at, but even then, Kevin tried to deal with it biblically, no response. He went to a wider community. People didn't want to have anything to do with it. So we kept the documentation, but he didn't do anything to try to make it more visible. But I guess now is the time.
Well, I think so. Yeah, we've been stuck in the dark ages for how long now? We took a secular.
And that's why. That's right. Because of all of the slander, the lies, the censorship, the malpractice. Really, if you're going to criticize a theory, that's fair.
Yeah.
But know what you're criticizing. Just don't throw out things and then say, well, actually, I haven't read it. But it's what everybody else says. So
yeah, and it's really hurt the creation movement because it's held us back. I mean, we've had all these accurate predictions for all these decades, and nobody knows about it. And it's just it's just frustrating to all ends. And that's what we're trying to do is let's get the hydroplate into the mainstream. And one of the main things that's keeping it out are these, this misinformation about Walt, and let's just get that dealt with. And then let's move on with science instead of having a sacred cow that you can't criticize. I mean, that's not science. That's what the evolutionists do. If you kick the sacred cow of evolution, you could get fired. And we have to be able to criticize a theory and not fear repercussions for it. Because I know a creation speaker and a videographer, they feel coerced into being silent because it could impact their pocketbook. If you talk about this theory and they got their CPT books that they're selling to make budget, and you do this, well, they aren't going to sell as many books. And so it's hurting science and it's hurting the cause for Christ. And a lot of people, Mike Snavely was saying how effective that was. He's given a presentation and somebody is, okay, I submit to Jesus. He put his faith in Jesus after seeing the hydroplate, and yet it's been kicked to the curb. And it's, the longer I live, the less I understand. And hopefully, with more and more people finding out about it, and I think it's got to be a grassroots movement. I think people
you've done so much, Brian, to increase the visibility here. You and Ellen and Brian, so many people. Yeah, it's huge. But you made a really important point, and I just want to go back and visit it to make sure we don't miss it. The issue is not people are not finding out about the hydroplate theory. I mean, that is the issue is the wider impact of that. Is that we've lost an apologetic tool, and it's hurt the cause, or at least it's prevented advancements for the cause of Christ. But it's hurt everybody. It's hurt the people that are doing this as well. I remember Walt was tracking for years. I forget what metrics he was looking at, if it was book sales or whatever. But he was saying, the creation science is losing ground in the church in terms of interest. And I think that's probably true. I just years ago, just even from my, limited community, talking to people, there was a lot more interest in creation science, and it's diminished. And it seems like we've got these entrenched groups that basically preaching to the choir. But another one of the things I appreciated, they've got their own, they keep saying the same things within their own communities. One of the things I appreciated about Walt was he wasn't interested in just preaching to the choir. He really was a teacher. So he was trying to communicate to the church at large. And yeah, it's hard and it's challenging, but it's a whole lot more approachable and understandable and accessible to most of us in the church than these obscure articles in some journal that nobody reads.
Well, yeah. You get academia bickering back and forth, and it's really sad what's happened, and hopefully it can be rectified. And what I find at college is people like to think. They don't like to be forced an idea. They don't like memorizing. And I think the creation organizations, the museums and, the Discover Center, if they put up both of the theories, I think people would love it. Put the put the plate tectonics up there, put CPT up there, and put hydroplate up there, and just say, these are the flood models, or these are the models. And then you got CPT and HPT. These are the flood models. And then these are the strengths. These are the weaknesses, and let people think.
And ask questions. Yeah. And ask questions.
Yeah. Come to your own conclusion. Mm-hmm. The evolutionists and the blind chancers, they're really good at forcing you to think their way. Christians should be above that. If there's two flood models, they should both be presented, especially if one of them's making accurate predictions.
And we should have enough confidence in Scripture.
Yes.
To reject something that conflicts with Scripture, and acknowledge the areas where that align with Scripture, that's support for that theory, right?
Right.
And,
yeah, because it almost seems like CPT has become an idol, and if you question it or want them to explain it better or to compare the strengths and weaknesses, now you're part of you're what was it? Sowing discord among the brethren. This is a theory.
Oh, right. A tool of Satan. It's a tool of Satan.
Yeah, this is a theory. This isn't Scripture. Let's just compare it. And the name calling, that's what the evolutionists do. We should be above that. Let's just look at the science. And if the hydroplate's wrong, then it's wrong. Let's move on.
Well, and Kevin, I think Kevin mentioned too, Walt was always saying, it's a theory. You can't say this is true. You look at the evidence and you make predictions and you test your theories and, you pile up the evidence. And he said, I may be wrong about something, and he did. He changed things as he learned more, and so he never claimed to be, infallible in all respects, and he was always open.
Yeah, and if somebody showed him where he was wrong, he would correct it. He didn't hide it from him, so it couldn't be corrected. And I think his example with Bob Dietz is an example for all of us. Bob's got a competing theory, and yet they were friends and they met every week and they discussed things. I think we could learn from that. It's just,
hopefully we will. We just got to keep focused and like Walt would, just keep moving forward.
Right. Right.
There's lots of work to do. Golly, we miss Walt, but there's lots we can do, and I just love your passion for reaching the next generation. There's certainly things that we can do there in terms of getting some more teaching materials available for different. Ellen's got such a gifting there, and I'm sure she could use some help.
Because I was going to go to the Creation Conference or Creation Convention, whatever it was, in St. Louis this year, where the creationist scientists were going to be, and try and get a hydroplate table, and I think it was Fred Williams. He said, don't waste your time. Their minds are made up. Go to the homeschoolers. Mm-hmm. And so I went up to Minnesota and Duluth. I went to that one, and who was Alex Newman was the keynote speaker at the convention. And I wanted to meet him so I could invite him to speak at our club so we could talk about transhumanism, the next phase of evolution, this biotech, all this stuff, cyborg stuff. And he just happened to go by my table, and I happened to meet him, and I had the
That's how
table.
you met him, huh?
Yeah, and so I got to meet him, and I think the question on my table was, will the hydroplate theory destroy the Big Bang? And as he goes by, I said, hey, you want to hear about a theory that would destroy the Big Bang? And he says, yeah. And so I got to, we corresponded, and then he interviewed me for like 15 minutes or so, and so it's going to be a bottom up thing. It's pretty clear that the people in charge don't want things to change. Just like the evolutionists, and Walt writes about that, in a scientific revolution, it's difficult when the people in charge are controlling everything. And then he says, but if a vast number of people realize they've been misled, now you can have a scientific revolution or a intellectual revolution. And that's what I'm trying to do, get a vast number of people to realize that we've been misled. And we get this avalanche of truth coming, and they can't stop it. It doesn't matter what they teach if nobody believes it. And so, this hydroplate theory is a powerful tool, a very good apologetic weapon. Bill Wells, he was a fighter pilot, and he had confidence in his weapons, to defend or attack. He had confidence, and he's got just as much confidence in the hydroplate in this spiritual battle. And he says, this is what we need to get equipped to go out into that world. And we're withholding it from people for whatever reason. And I think the more people find out about it, and the more they get informed and inform others. And tomorrow night, I hope everybody can make it to that, because Matthew Naylor from Standing for Truth, he's going to go through, and he's got a game plan on how to influence people. You build a team, and you get it taught in the church, and you have children's material, and you have practical stuff. But the team thing is, you can have a team. He's never met Donnie. Donnie lives in California, or Colorado. He lives in Canada, and Matt lives in California, and they've had a team for 6 years debating everybody. And so tomorrow evening's talk, I think it'll be very important to hear that. And then we're going to have the roundtable discussion. And I think if we get a little more focused, a little more organized, we can slay this dragon that's keeping the truth from people. And basically, I just want to give people an opportunity to think. That shouldn't be controversial. If there's two theories out there, show them to us. Just don't. The people who censor, and it's like the people. That's the other thing Walt writes. He says, pay attention to who steps up to the mic, or who avoids debates. Which side avoids debates in this scientific revolution.
That's a good one, for sure.
Pay attention, because we got an open mic to anybody, any CPT guy who wants to discuss it. It's there.
That's one thing I've noticed too, is whenever a new fulfilled prediction comes forward, or a new lie exposed, or a new problem emerges, and we come forward and expose this, people just stay silent, because they've learned that they can get away with that.
Yeah.
It boggles my mind. Here's a fact, and here's the problem, and then but nothing.
Yeah.
Because they've learned they don't have to do that. They can throw their untruths out there. They can publish their misleading articles with wrong information about the hydroplate theory. They can do this, but then when confronted, zip.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be any accountability for that.
Yeah. But I do have hope. I've seen what's happened in the medical, the vaccine part of what's happened. 16 years in 2016, there was Vaxxed, which was just, censored everywhere, and you're just on the fringe. And now you got Bobby Kennedy in here and in there, and they just had the ACIP meeting today, and Aaron Siri presented out how they didn't have any placebo studies on any of them, and so they voted to not recommend the hepatitis B vaccine on the first day of life. So that's not on the schedule anymore. And there's
Baby steps, but it's better than nothing, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then if people are interested, the Highwire on Thursday, the highwire.com on Thursday, they talked about why the motive was for not having these injuries recognized. It's because it'll bankrupt America, like $18 trillion. Somebody said it, it'd break the system. And so that's why they're biased against recognizing it. Well, okay, but don't keep forcing it on people. Let's put an end to this. And that's where you need to get all the information to make informed decisions. And Aaron Siri is really good about, these are the documents. And he wrote a book called Vaccines Amen. That's the Christmas gift for the year, because he uses, the vaccine inserts, government documents, and expert testimony to show that to just get informed people, and then they can make their own decision. It's like when you can't persuade them, that's when you have to force them. And that
we've assumed all these years that they've done all these safety studies and efficacy studies, and we find out, well, no, they haven't.
Exactly. And that's like the evolutionists. They got all this mountains of evidence that promote evolution. It's like, well, show us some, and they'll always, and Bob Enyards talks about, they'll always point to another field. Like the biologist will point to geology, and geology will point to astronomy, and astronomy will point to biology, because they know it's not in their field. And yeah, so so I am, my wife, we were just shocked or stunned, it's like, wow, so there's a good vote there today. And I think just give people all the information. And I think the hydroplate is a good way to explain the world, man, especially those Walt Brown interviews. Yeah, after I listened to them, Walt Brown week, never saw the world the same or the solar system the same again. It's like,
I need to go back and listen to those again. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're gold. They're gold, and then Bob Enyart, how God used him in all this. I probably wouldn't have heard about it at all if it wasn't for Bob. And those two are probably up in heaven just having a great old time. And yeah, what a blessing. So I'm just trying to pick up the torch where they left it and push it down the field. And hopefully, when we're gone, somebody else will be picking it up. And that's what I'm really focused on. I don't want Walt's work to fall by the wayside, or even Bob Enyart's work. And so I think this is a very, very important tool for creationists, and we need to get it into the churches. If the churches would teach creation, that's the other domino that's got to fall. And
yeah, I've been so blessed, and I think only recently realized how unusual it is, because Kevin always has taught creation, and because that's what the Bible teaches, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So there's a battle, and you've done a tremendous part of it. Thank you for documenting all that. Thank you for those interviews that you have on Real Science Radio. So that's rsr.org. You can rsr.org, search Albright, and people can see those and listen to those. And you could critique all three flood models. And it's the third one that drops into the controversy.
Well, there's three parts, 1, 2, and 3 are flood models, and then part four.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because on my DVDs, but yeah, that's what I listen to driving around. And, I think people should start asking, hey, what predictions have you made? You got your theory. What predictions have you made? And just start right there. That's the hydroplate protocol. I did it last night, but my sound didn't work. It's pilot error. Yeah. So I'm going to do it again tonight after you're done. I'll just keep going, and I'll go through Walt Brown's predictions. And so this, what these predictions are, and see if these are going to be right. And here's the ones that are right. And then you can ask the plate tectonics people that, you can ask the CPT people that, and the evolutionists that, what are your predictions? And I like what I think Walt Brown wrote. You shouldn't be published until you can make a prediction. He said that would save us a lot of time and money.
For sure.
But yeah. Well, I want to.
Some of those predictions haven't been validated yet, not because they can't be, but maybe it's just because the right resource, and some of them wouldn't even be that hard to go investigate. I think Ellen McHenry has pointed out several predictions that it's a matter of going to someplace and taking a sample and doing, so that's something else we could think about in terms of donations, or maybe people listening to this with different technical backgrounds, maybe look at those predictions and see what hasn't been fulfilled and what could be. And, that's another whole area.
Yeah, and I'll go through them. Fred McNabb has gone through, because in the book, I think there was 7 of them that were confirmed. And I think the new book, they sent me some, and I think might be 10 or 12 that are confirmed. And
I can't remember, but yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
And then Fred McNabb, he sent me a printout, and he says there's about 19 or 20 that are confirmed. And so I'll go through those when we're done here, and then people can see the predictions. And then they've got, Fred McNabb has his sources there, and people can double check them. And I think this is I think the framework is right with the hydroplate. There might be some details that are wrong, but I think the structure is a valid structure for looking at the past. And I think that this could be, it could be, it could bring us out of the dark ages. That's what I'm hoping for. I had a sign at St. Cloud State, a big sign. Will SCSU lead us out of the dark ages of the Big Bang and evolution? And, but we'll see.
Love it.
Indeed. But I should respect your time. Are there any parting comments that you'd like to share?
Thanks again for putting this together. And it's been been really encouraging.
Oh man, it's been a labor of love. Just been able to talk to all these people, just loved it. And it was kind of like when we had the hydroplate conference 2 years ago, getting to listen to all these, PhDs and, Rob Brown and all this stuff, talk about it. And that we haven't even mentioned that this week is there's the hydroplate conference, which was 2 years ago. And you can see the talks on this channel or the Hydroplate Theory channel or at hydroplate.org. If you want to see some of the talks that the PhDs gave and other people.
Yeah, I want to revisit some of those again too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now that I'm retired, so yeah.
Yeah, Donnie from Standing for Truth, he watched every one of them in order.
Really?
Yeah. And then he asked us to do a hydroplate talk.
Right.
And Pastor Lee and I, we wanted to do a roundtable discussion, but nobody would step up to the microphone, so we did the seminar.
That was a marathon session. 4.5 hours, wasn't it? 4.5 hours.
Yeah. But I think the younger generation, they're getting used to these longer form. I mean, some of them are TikTokers, but other people, they get used to the longer form discussions and they see past the sound bites. And the younger generation, I think, is more conservative than a lot of them because they're sick of being lied to, And so hopefully God will have an awakening, spiritual awakening in this younger generation. And hopefully we can equip them to stand up to this godless dogma of evolution and the Big Bang that permeates society. And we can do it, I think. And it's a fun battle. And I do appreciate all the work you did on studying all that out, making the timeline, doing those interviews, being on, making it understandable. And I just pray that God would bless your efforts to help this get rectified, and so that the truth can prevail.
Well, thanks for being a megaphone.
That's what I am. I'm no scientist. I'm the megaphone. And it's a lot of fun. Well, I'll let you get on with the evening, and thank you so much, Jane. We appreciate it. Well, that was a lot of fun. Oh my, yes, I am a kid in a candy store. And I'll do one more promo for tomorrow, and then we're going to jump into the hydroplate protocol. So enjoy this.
Or probably the most important